There's a white powder sitting on a shelf at almost every grocery store in America right now, within walking distance of wherever you are watching this. You have probably walked past it 100 times. It costs under $1 a batch to mix. And when you put it on mold, black mold, bathroom mold, basement mold, any mold, the mold dies and does not come back. No bleach, no scrubbing spray, no professional service, just powder and hot water. The mold remediation and household cleaning products industry in the United States generates over $11 billion a year, according to IBIS World's 2023 industry report. $11 billion. For a problem this powder solves for less than the price of a candy bar. The powder is borax. And in 2010, the European Chemicals Agency quietly removed it from every consumer cleaning product sold across Europe. Not because it stopped working, because it never stopped. Here's the thing that needs to sit with you before we touch anything. Mold does not come back after borax dries on a surface. That is the sentence the cleaning aisle does not want you to understand. Bleach kills the mold you can see and then evaporates in roughly 2 days. The spores that sank deeper into the wall are already growing again before you throw the empty bottle in the bin. Borax does not evaporate. It soaks into the surface, dries right there, and stays. The wall itself becomes hostile to mold. And there's one variable in how you mix this that almost every person gets wrong on the first try. Getting it wrong means the mold comes back in 3 weeks. Getting it right means it doesn't come back for years. We will get to that. The European Chemicals Agency, the body that decides what ingredients can go into cleaning products sold across Europe, reclassified borax under something called the CLP regulation in 2010. That regulation works like a traffic light system for chemicals, sorting them by how risky they are to handle. Borax was labeled a Category 2 reproductive concern, which means that in animal studies, very high doses raised some flags. Not in humans, not at the concentrations a person would ever encounter scrubbing a bathroom wall. In animals, at doses you would never reach from normal use. The result was that borax disappeared from cleaning products across an entire continent. A box of it, enough powder to treat every moldy surface in an average home multiple times over, costs about $5.50 at any U.S. grocery store. You cannot build an $11 billion industry on a $5 box that lasts 6 months. That silence is not an accident. That silence is a business model. The Centers for Disease Control published findings showing that indoor mold has been detected in roughly 1 in 3 American homes at any given point in time. 1 in 3. That is not a rare problem hiding in old buildings with leaking roofs. That is the house next door, possibly the room you are sitting in right now. And the typical response, hiring a professional mold remediation team for a single bathroom, runs between $500 and $3,000, according to HomeAdvisor's national cost data. A borax treatment for the same bathroom costs under $2 in materials, not just cheaper, $2. Borax has been known and traded for a very long time. Tibetan merchants were carrying it along the Silk Road as early as the 8th century, selling it under the Arabic name tinkle to craftsmen in Persia and Arabia, who used it to clean gold and work metal. Medieval European jewelers used it to remove the thin layer of corrosion that builds on metal over time, the way a damp cloth removes the crust that forms on the inside of an old tea kettle. The chemistry that makes borax so effective at cleaning metal is the same chemistry that destroys mold. It attacks the outer membrane of a living cell the way dish soap attacks a grease film on a plate. The membrane breaks down. The cell collapses. For mold, which is just a colony of microscopic cells packed tightly together, the collapse is total and immediate. In the late 1800s, a California company began mining borax from the desert near Death Valley and selling it under a name you may already recognize, 20 Mule Team Borax. They marketed it for laundry, stain removal, cleaning surfaces, and pest control. That product is still on shelves today. The formula has not changed. The box you buy now is the box from 1891. Borax did not need to be updated. It was already doing the job. You have seen this chemical at work without ever connecting the dots. When you clean the inside of an oven after a spill bakes onto it, and that burned crust comes off with a damp cloth and some baking soda, you are watching alkaline chemistry cut through organic material. Borax is alkaline. Think of it as baking soda's more powerful older sibling. High pH, meaning a surface that leans toward the alkaline end of the spectrum, the way the inside of a clean oven leans. Breaks down organic material the way boiling water softens a potato. Mold is organic material. It cannot survive in an environment that is strongly alkaline any more than a potato stays firm in a boiling pot. Every expensive mold spray is trying to do in 30 seconds what borax, left to dry into a surface, does in 2 hours and keeps doing for months afterward. You have been paying for speed. You have not been paying for results. Those are two different things. The mistake lives in the water temperature, not the amount of borax, not how hard you scrub. The water temperature. Most people use whatever comes out of the tap without thinking about it. Get it wrong and the powder never fully dissolves, and borax that is not dissolved completely sits on the surface as a gritty film rather than soaking in. Here is everything you need. Here is what you need. I want to be honest with you about every number. 1 box of 20 Mule Team Borax. Find it at Walmart, Target, most grocery stores, and online. A 4-pound box runs about $5.50. You'll use roughly 1 cup per cleaning batch, so 1 box covers 8 to 10 full treatment sessions. That works out to under 70 cents per session, 1 bucket or large pot. Whatever you already own, nothing special. A scrub brush with stiff bristles. A dollar store brush works perfectly well. This is not precision work. A spray bottle for tight corners and grout lines. Most households already own one. Old rags or worn-out towels. Not paper towels. They fall apart when the surface is wet. That is genuinely it. Under $6 total if you're starting from absolutely nothing. Most people already own 4 of those 5 things. Start with the hottest water your tap produces. Not boiling? You're not making tea and you do not need a stove. But as hot as the tap will give you. The reason matters. Borax dissolves far more completely in hot water than cold. The same way sugar dissolves faster in coffee than in a glass of iced water. When borax dissolves fully, every drop of your solution carries the full working strength of the powder. When it dissolves only halfway, you get loose particles sitting in the water that will drift to the bottom of your bucket and never reach the wall. Pour roughly 1 cup of borax into your bucket. Then pour in about a gallon of that hot water. Stir for at least 60 seconds. The water will not turn clear. It will stay slightly cloudy, the color of skim milk, and that is exactly right. Clear water means the powder did not fully incorporate. Milky water means it did. You are ready to work. Before you apply anything, put on gloves. Borax is not bleach. It will not burn your hands. But repeated contact dries skin out the way handling chalk dries your hands during a long day. Cheap gloves from any hardware store handle this completely. If the mold patch is larger than both of your open hands placed side by side, wear a simple dust mask as well. The moment a brush touches dry mold, the spores go airborne. You do not feel them. You do not taste them. But a large cloud landing in your lungs will give you a cough and irritation that lasts the better part of a week. Open a window in the room before you start. Just a crack is enough to pull fresh air through and carry the disturbed spores outward, rather than letting them settle back onto surfaces. Before you touch the mold with your brush, spray the affected area with plain water using your spray bottle. Just 1 light pass. You're not soaking the wall. You're damping the surface just enough to stop the mold spores from launching into the air the moment you disturb them. Dry mold behaves exactly like dry soil. Tap it, and a visible cloud rises. Wet mold stays in place. 1 pass with the spray bottle, then wait 2 minutes before continuing. Now dip your brush into the borax solution and scrub the mold with firm, circular strokes. The same motion you would use to clean a stubborn stain from a pot. The goal at this stage is not to wipe the mold away. The goal is to push the borax solution into the surface underneath it, into the texture of the grout, into the small pores of the wall material, into the fibers of any caulk lines. If you scrub and then immediately rinse or wipe, you have cleaned the surface without treating it. The mold will return in roughly 2 weeks because you removed the solution before it had time to penetrate. You want the borax inside the material, not sitting on top of it. Scrub it in firmly, then step back. Leave the surface wet. Do not dry it, do not wipe it, leave it for 20 minutes. Here's the one thing most people get wrong. After those 20 minutes, they rinse the surface clean. Do not rinse, ever. This is the single most important step in the entire process, and it is the step that separates a surface that stays clean from a surface that grows mold again in 3 weeks. Rinsing removes the borax that is still sitting on and in the surface. The borax that stays behind, drying slowly into the texture of the grout or wall, is what prevents regrowth. When borax dries onto a porous surface, it leaves a thin residue you can barely feel and cannot see at a glance. That residue changes the chemistry of the surface the way sprinkling salt on ice changes the ice. Mold spores that land on a borax-treated surface cannot get started. Their cells cannot build the chemistry they need to reproduce and anchor. They arrive, find a surface that is hostile to everything they require, and die without ever taking hold. Rinse the borax away, and you have only done half the job. Scrub in, leave it, walk away. After those 20 minutes, while the surface is still damp, take 1 more pass with a cloth lightly dampened in your borax solution. Not soaking wet, just enough to leave a thin, fresh film across the entire treated area, including a hand width of border beyond the visible edge of the mold. This matters because mold spreads in every direction from its center, including outward through areas that look clean to the eye. The visible mold is the middle of the problem. The invisible edge is where next month's outbreak begins. Treat the border now, and you stop it before it starts. Then, let the surface dry completely on its own. In a ventilated bathroom, this takes about 2 hours. In a basement with poor airflow, give it closer to 4. Once dry, that surface is treated. When you want to confirm the treatment worked, look at the surface after it has dried. If there is a faint white haze, the kind of thin residue a drop of hard water leaves on a drinking glass, The borax dried in place and the treatment is complete. That haze is the borax. That is exactly what you are looking for. If the surface looks completely clear and clean with no trace, one of two things happened. The mix was too diluted, or the surface was wiped before fully drying. Mix a fresh batch using the hottest tap water you have, apply it, and this time do not touch the surface again until it is fully dried on its own. 1 bucket of this solution, 1 cup of borax, and a gallon of hot water covers the full bathroom of a typical home in one session. A family of 4 usually has 2 or 3 bathrooms, a basement corner, and a spot behind the washing machine that all carry mold at various points in the year. 1 $5 box of borax handles all of it twice, with powder left over. If you manage a larger space, an older farmhouse, a rental property, a building with multiple units, a 10-pound bag of borax runs about $12 and covers every moldy surface in the building multiple times over. You're not scheduling a contractor. You're not waiting for an appointment window. You're not signing off on a $500 invoice. You mix it, you apply it, and you walk away. No bills, no infrastructure, no asking anyone's permission. There is one more thing about this solution that took years to surface in the research, and it changes how you think about mold prevention entirely. Borax does not just kill the mold that is currently visible. Applied as a preventive coat to surfaces that are prone to moisture, the grout around a shower, the wall behind a toilet, the ceiling of a basement bathroom, it stops mold colonies from ever establishing in the first place. A thin application once per year to known problem areas means you are never treating an outbreak because the outbreak never starts. Most people only reach for mold treatment after the problem is visible. That means the colony has already been growing invisibly for weeks. Applying borax before you see anything, twice a year in high humidity spaces, keeps you permanently ahead of the problem rather than chasing behind it. Here is what borax does not do, and I want to be straight with you about this. It does not remove staining. The dark gray and black marks that mold leaves on grout and caulk are stains left behind by the colony even after every mold cell is dead. Borax kills the colony and prevents regrowth, but it does not bleach surfaces. If the staining matters to you, a 10-minute application of hydrogen peroxide, the kind in the brown bottle at any pharmacy, the same mild concentration used on a scraped knee, applied separately after the borax has fully dried, will lighten most staining significantly. The two do not get mixed together. Borax first, fully dry, then hydrogen peroxide on its own for the cosmetic result. You are doing 2 different jobs with 2 different tools. Neither costs more than $2 for a full bathroom. Borax also does not reach deep into materials that have been seriously water damaged over a long time. If drywall has been wet for months and the panel feels soft or spongy when you press it with a finger, like a piece of cardboard that got rained on and never fully dried, the mold has gone deeper than any surface treatment can reach. That panel needs to come out and be replaced. That is not a failure of borax. That is a structural problem, and no commercial product on the market, regardless of price or brand, can fix it from the surface either. Fix the moisture source first, then apply the borax. In that order, the treatment holds indefinitely. Those Tibetan merchants carrying tinkle across Central Asia in the 8th century did not have access to a laboratory or a microscope. They did not know the word alkaline. They had no way to measure pH. What they had was observation built up over generations. Goods stored near this white mineral stayed clean longer. Cloth packed in contact with it did not grow the dark patches that ruined cloth stored without it. Food stored in treated containers held longer. They did not need an explanation to trust the result. The explanation came more than 1,000 years later. The observation was always there. The powder you can buy this afternoon for a few dollars is the same material those traders valued enough to haul across one of the most difficult land routes in the ancient world. A white powder, hot water, a brush, a surface that you leave alone to dry. That is the whole list. That has always been the whole list.